Okay, Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. So, inshallah, lesson number 6, tips on how to memorize the Quran. So, the Hufaz, of course, mashallah, you guys could give us a lot of pointers over here, but we'll come to that. So, really quickly, what are some tips to memorizing the Quran? Here's a list. Please take notes. Number 1, and this is mentioned all the time, okay? The intention. Having a sincere niyyah, ikhlasun niyyah, okay? Purifying our intention. Why are we doing it? Why are we trying to memorize the Quran? And so one of my teachers, he said, he had a friend, and this was in Saudi Arabia. He said that there was a Quran competition, basically, whoever could memorize the Quran the fastest, okay? And they gave people, and of course they would make sure that they hadn't memorized it before. And his friend, he memorized the entire Quran in 2 months. And he went and he basically, if you win, you win a brand new car. So his friend memorizes the Quran, he recites the entire Quran to the judges or whoever for the competition, and he gets this amazing car. It's a really nice sports car. I don't know what it was, but he gets a sports car. And after he got it, he started to feel really, really guilty. Okay? And he thought about it, he said, I just memorized the book of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, but I did it for totally the wrong reason, right? I just did it for this car. And so he renewed his intention, and what he did is he said that from now on, I'm going to, because he got the car already, he had an option, right? He could have just said, forget it, I'm just going to forget the Quran now. It doesn't matter anymore, I got what I wanted. But he made a sincere intention to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. He said, oh Allah, I did it for the wrong reason, but now I'm never going to forget the Quran, because I want to be rewarded, or I want to get the reward in the akhirah, which is the real reward. Okay? So, sincere intention. Second.
Can't you also have the intention of wanting to get a car too? Or just...
No. You should make... So, one of the scholars, they said, they give the example, okay, all the time. Actually, Sheikh Kamal Makki says this is pretty funny. So he says, if you get a brownie, okay, you have a brownie, and you... put one, instead of putting one chocolate chip, you put gloves on. Just say you put gloves on. You get a little bit of dog poop, okay, and you put it in the brownie, in the middle of the brownie, just a little bit of it, right? And you bake that brownie, and it smells really good, but there's just a little bit of poop in it. And you tell someone that there's this brownie and it has a little poop. Would you take it? Would you eat it?
Yes.
Okay, the exception is Abdul Kareem, because mashallah, he's willing to eat anything. Okay? But the point is, it wouldn't be acceptable. We wouldn't take it. Right? And the same thing over here, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, when we do actions, right, we should do them sincerely for Him. If there's just even a little bit of, shirk involved, the whole action is null. Okay? It's void, and it's not really acceptable. Anyways, number 2. Decrease the number of sins. So, this was, I believe, mentioned before. I think Abdullah mentioned this too. That the scholars, they recommend that a person does less sins, especially the major sins. You should stay away from. Right? If you're watching bad things on TV or internet or whatever, and you're trying to memorize the Quran, that's going to be very, very difficult for you to do that. Right? So, staying away from those types of major sins and fahishat, basically. That will definitely, inshallah, help you try to memorize the Quran. Yes?
Number 3.
Well, hold on.
Were they even shoelaces?
We'll get to that. Yeah.
Yeah, just like my dad used to tell me, let go of your worldly matters when trying to memorize the Quran, because what happens oftentimes, and this happened to me like a long time ago when I was memorizing, like sometimes, for example, like if you watch a lot of TV, for example, when you're memorizing the Quran, you'll always be thinking about, for example, that TV show. Oh, like when am I gonna watch it? And you'll start to keep thinking about it. So like for what it says in number 2, decrease sins. Yeah, of course. Like you should be like trying to avoid like ever watching TV. Just focus on what you're doing. Yeah. Because that will distract you a lot.
Jazakallah khair. And in Mauritania, they mention about the people there, when TV was introduced to them. Basically, they had kind of kept it out for a while, and they were living a very Bedouin type of lifestyle. There was barely any electricity, or maybe there was electricity, but it would only run a few times a day and things like this. So they didn't have really TV and all the amenities that we have. They had very, very sharp memories. And right when they started to introduce these types of things, TV and electronics and all these things, that's where their memories just started to fade away. And that's why you see a lot of people nowadays, it's very difficult for them to focus on things because we have 10,000 images going up and down our minds. First Muhammad and then Abdullah. Yeah.
My teacher in my old school, actually, it wasn't a teacher, you know Ali Hassan?
Yes.
Him. He said that when you're about to start memorizing, like you have to drink water, you drink it before. You take a cup with you or you use the bathroom before so you don't cut.
Yeah. Jazakumullah khairan. So try to get rid of the distractions before you memorize. So I'm going to let you guys share yours in a few minutes. Let me go through some of these then. Okay, number 3, sincere dua. Okay, so Aisha radiallahu anha said that even if your shoelace breaks, basically something very, very minimal, something almost nobody really cares about. If that breaks, okay, make dua that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala fixes it. Basically, even make dua for the smallest little tiny things in your life. Okay. Okay, so the next thing is practice what you memorize. Okay, another thing about number 3 about the dua. So not only you yourself can make the dua, but tell your parents to make the dua for you, or your mom, your dad. You know, their duas are, very, especially when they're making dua for their kids, it's more likely to be accepted. Okay, the good and the bad duas. So you have to be careful. So making dua for you to memorize the Quran, trying to wake up in the middle of the night making dua. There's a dua that's not very authentic. I believe it's da'if, or it might, I'm not sure, I don't think it's fabricated, but it's da'if. A lot of scholars, they call it da'if. And, but it's a very beautiful dua in its meaning. Allahumma rahmani bitarkil ma'asi. And it's a long dua, I don't remember it actually, but so this dua, it's a very beautiful dua, and it's one that's specifically mentioned for memorizing the Quran. Let's say if the hadith is da'if, it's still okay permissible for someone to use that dua. Don't consider it sunnah, but because of the meaning of the dua. Yes?
It says, for practice what you memorize. Is that part of number 4?
Number 4, oh yeah, practice what you memorize, and then tangible physical things that you can do. So basically, there's a lot of actions that you can do in order to memorize. Okay, and so whatever you like memorize in the Quran, for example, right? You try to practice it in your life. Remember when we were talking about the rights of the Quran? We mentioned that understanding it and also practicing, implementing what you have, what the tilawah is. Yes.
But I'm saying, is it part of number 4 or is it?
Oh, the tangible physical things you can do? No, so that's 4 separate. So tangible physical things you can do, these are 5, 6, 7, pretty much. So number 5, memorize after Fajr. Early in the morning. Why do you think that's a good idea? Or even before Fajr? Your brain is fresh. You started something. Now this is you just slept. You had inshallah good night's sleep. You wake up in the morning. You don't have all these images and things in your head. You don't have all these conversations that you're thinking. You don't have, and usually people are sleeping at that time. Okay, and usually people, especially before Fajr, this is the time it's very, very quiet, so you can concentrate. So there's all these different benefits, and then the ayah from the Quran actually as well, right? Inna Quran al-Fajr kana mashhuda. That Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says that this is a witnessed, it's a blessed time, and the Prophet ﷺ said in another hadith as well that this Fajr time is one for his ummah. It's a full of barakah. It's a full of blessings. Okay. Yes.
You know how they say it's like when you go to sleep, like anything that you saw before you slept, or whatever you read or anything, you'd see it like while you're sleeping.
Sometimes, yeah. It's subconscious things.
Yeah. I tried this thing where before I went to sleep, I put Quran on the headphones and I just went to sleep. During the sleep, like it would be repeated the whole time. When I woke up, I woke up and I completely had it memorized.
Yeah. Yeah, and it's possible. Even women when they're pregnant, they keep reciting the Quran, and especially like Pakistani women, they recite Surah Yasin every single day, maybe once, twice, 3 times a day. They give a lot of importance to it. But the point is that when the baby's born and growing up and so on, for some reason, and I think it's one of the miracles and one of the things that it sticks because they heard it so many times in the womb. that it's very easy for especially Pakistanis to memorize Surah Yasin. And those Hufad could probably tell me that too. When you're doing Salat al-Taraweeh, how many people have memorized Surah Yasin behind you? When you make a mistake in Surah Yasin, everyone's saying, giving you luqma, right? Why? Because a lot of people, not only there's importance to this surah, but maybe because it's easier for people to memorize because it's repeated so often. Allah knows best, but the point is, memorize after Fajr or before, during the time of Fajr, and before you do anything else, so that you're not thinking about other things. Yes?
When you say before breakfast, is it because the time or because you're eating?
Just when you start eating, you're usually having conversations.
No.
You're involved in other things. Then your body, the blood is rushing to your stomach to digest. So this way you're more fresh before doing anything else.
Fast. Does that help?
Fasting, I mean, every single day.
It puts back up.
The days.
Okay. Sometimes if you're fasting, especially on the days of the sunnah, like the Mondays, Thursdays, the 3 white days, these types of things, then inshallah, yes. But I wouldn't say recommend every single day. Yeah.
This one tip: if you're memorizing up to Fajr, make sure you sleep beforehand.
Yeah.
Because I tried memorizing yesterday after Fajr and I fell asleep.
Yeah. Well, if you have to have a good night's sleep, so if you're sleeping at 2:00, waking up for Fajr, your brain's gonna be dead, right? You're not gonna be able to concentrate. You're gonna want to go to sleep.
Actually, brother, when you wake up, usually you're hungry, and when you're memorizing Quran, you're gonna be thinking, it's like, oh, when am I gonna be done so I can go?
Well, you can drink some water, do something a little bit just to satisfy it.
Isn't that the same thing also for Ramadan before iftar? Like, go eat your food because your mind.
Or prayer, yeah.
Before prayer, because you're while you're eating, while you're praying, it's like, oh, let's.
That's a good point, but usually if you think about it, when you're preparing breakfast, if you're doing it yourself and things, there's all these different things that start coming to your mind. If you just prayed Fajr and you make dua, dhikr, and then you go and stand and you start trying to memorize the Quran, this will make it just a lot easier for you, inshallah. Okay, number 6. So there's no magic trick to memorizing the Quran. There's no wird that we can do. So some people have these things weird things that I'm going to say this a million times and then I'm going to be able to memorize the Quran. And there's nothing like that. Okay? You can make lots of dua, you ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala all the time, but there's no special magic formula that you do. You just keep repeating it, looking at the Quran and trying to memorize. And we have different things, I'll give you some more tips in a minute. But another thing is, memorize verse connections. Sometimes there are mutashabihat, there's a lot of verses that are, is that the correct word or there's something else? Basically they're very, very similar to other verses. And you have to be very careful when you're memorizing those things and memorize them well so that you don't forget them. Okay? Next thing, memorize with the meaning if you can. Okay? Try to memorize with the meaning. So when you're going through the Quran, try to read the translation. If you memorize the page, go through the tafsir of the page. Okay, go through the translation so you at least have a basic understanding of what it means. And inshallah, that will also help you when you're reciting the Quran. Okay, when you might be stuck in an ayah, if you know what it means, you might have a clue what the next ayah is going to be. And also the endings of the verse, right? Like last year I had a couple of students, they're reading a surah, and they read something about doing good deeds, righteous deeds, amal salih and iman and doing righteous deeds, and then they said they were going to be in the hellfire, something like this. So if you have understanding of what you're saying, then you won't make mistakes like that. Okay, you'll be able to. Or you mention qualities of the people of hell, and then you say that they're going to be in Jannah forever. So you have to be careful and understand what you're trying to recite. Okay, number 9. Try to listen to the recitation before memorizing. One of the things, alhamdulillah, I started trying to memorize again. So I'm just doing 2 lines a day, 2-3 lines a day, right? And one of the things I do on the way to work is Sheikh Al-Husari. I have Quran Explorer on the app. So I just, I put it on for 10-15 times. And I'm not an audio or, what's it called? Audio learner, right? Or whatever it's called. But anyway, so I have to look at the page. I have to look at the verses before I memorize it. So, but 10-15 times I listen to each ayah on the way to school. and then I open up the Mus'haf, read it a few times, and I have it, right? So listening to it, this all also helps. Yes.
What's with all being in third person, like, and he learned and he learned?
Oh, he'd advise us to use Husari. So what I did is I copied some of the things from different books and lectures and different things I had. So I have that. That's maybe why. Some of them are copied from there. Some of them are things I learned from the lecture. Okay. Number 10, consistency. We talked about this all the time. You have to do it every single day. Okay. You shouldn't ever leave a day out. You do at least 2-3 lines, whatever is easy for you. Even if it's one line, do it every single day. And especially the weekends too. Don't try to do it. Don't do it just a few days a week. So, as we talked about before, it becomes easier and easier for you to memorize. When you're memorizing, you start 2-3 lines, and it's sometimes 5-10 lines, 15 lines. You're going up to 2-3 pages sometimes by the end of your hifz. Abdullah, did you have your hand up before for a question, or what did you want to?
No, it's fine.
Okay. Yes.
It's an amazing application. Really old. I used it when I was small, and I'm actually going to use it again.
Inshallah.
It's basically that there's the page of the Quran in front of you on a computer,
Yeah.
and you listen to the Sheikh reciting it.
Yeah.
When I was small, I memorized Surah Al-Rahman through it. Only
Yeah.
Surah Al-Rahman. So I'm memorizing the Quran. When I was small, I was like 12 juz, and then I just like stopped for a long time. I forgot everything, but Surah Al-Rahman was there. Because when you read and listen sometimes, it's really good.
And one of the things you said, you had it on the computer screen, right?
Yeah.
There's a website, it's called QuranFlash.com. QuranFlash.com. The Mus'haf, they have different actually Musahif. They're online, and they have the Madani one, they have the Pakistan, the Urdu version. They have the other, whatever, the 15-liner, the Egyptian ones. Point I'm trying to make, the scholar, one of the teachers, he said that the brain function, your memory is basically in the frontal lobe over here, right? Or actually, in the right side. Okay? This right side over here. So when you are trying to remember something, usually you look up, right? You're like this, right? Why do you do that? Because your memory, you're trying to go back to this area right here. So they were saying that if you're trying to memorize something, one of the best things that you can do is put it in front of you. Okay? Put the Mus'haf like this. Do not, like a lot of times we put it down here, right? When we're trying to memorize, we try to put it down here, and usually your eyes are looking downwards. So it aids the memory if you're looking at something like this and trying to memorize. Or even like this, a little bit above you. Okay? So try to do that, and inshallah this will help you in memorizing. Another thing, 11, do not jump from place to place. So some people, they memorize part of Surah Al-Baqarah. Then they jump to Surah Al-Naml, like we're doing, right? And then they jump to Surah Qasas, and Qasas is right after Naml. But then they jump to Juz Amma. Okay, and they're jumping all over the place. The thing is, we should try to go in order. And the scholars, they suggest that you start from the 30th Juz, okay, and work your way backwards until you're confident and you're able to do it. So you work your way backwards to the 22nd, 21st Juz, and then you can start from the first or keep going backwards like this, right? This is one thing that's very important, because when you're reviewing, it's just much easier for you to do. Number 12, eat brain food. So there's different things that the scholars suggest. One, almonds. Some people say walnuts, like anything that is shaped. I don't know. My wife told me this actually. She said that the hakims, or they call them like medicinal doctors, or like not medicinal doctors. Traditional medicine. Okay, so they say that anything that is shaped like a brain, okay, that's actually good for the brain. So, like this is something. So almonds, walnuts, these types of things, eating these, inshallah, will aid in memory.
Chocolate.
Not eating.
Dark chocolate.
Okay, dark chocolate. I didn't know that, but not eating junk food is also a good thing to keep away or stay away from. Using one Quran. This is very important. Okay, using one Mus'haf, and I learned the hard way, because I can still remember, when I was memorizing Surah Al-Baqarah, the page where, when I'm reading the ayah, I could remember where it's on the page. When I switched the Mus'haf, it got scattered. Okay? Because you don't remember. So try to stick with one mushaf. And that's why you'll see some of the hufad, mashallah, they have a mushaf like 15, 20, 25 years old, and it's taped up, and because they've been using it from the beginning. Okay? So try to stick to that. You don't have to be that hardcore. If you have like 2 or 3 of the same mushafs, you can use that, as long as it's the same print. Okay? So number 14, don't have distractions. When you're memorizing, don't have any types of distractions while you're trying to memorize. Now, Quran every day. What should you do? Okay? So Sheikh Yasir Qadi, one time he was teaching us a class on Ulumul Quran, and he went over this, and I thought this was wonderful. So 3 things you have to do every single day. Okay? So 1, you have to memorize something new. Even if it's 1 line. Okay? Every single day. Stay consistent. Do something every single day. Number 2. Okay? You have to review what you learned in the previous 10 days. Whatever you memorized in the last 10 days, you have to review it. So for example, it's like a snake. Okay? It's like a snake, or actually a snail. Right? You have, what's the date today?
22nd.
22nd of September. Okay? So you have all the way back to the 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Yarhamukallah. Okay? So you have all the way back to the 13th of September. This needs to be reviewed every single day. Okay? So the last 10 days. The next day, so tomorrow, it would be the 23rd. So you would review all the way back to the 14th. You understand? So it's like a snail moving. On the next day, the 24th, on Wednesday, you go all the way back to the 15th. You get my point. Okay?
Well, brother, sorry to interrupt, but
There's a third part, so wait a second. Yeah. So this is the second part. So every single day you have to do this. The third muraja you have to do basically, or the third type, is reviewing the back stuff. Okay? So doing, like for example, it depends on how much you've memorized already. If you memorize the entire Quran, like they mentioned, the scholars mentioned finishing it once a week. Others, once a month, but at least, you should be reading it once a month, or you're going to start forgetting it. But the point is, the third, or the part C, is where'd it go? There it is. So do muraja of the old pages. So for example, at least a juz, I would say, or a lot, whatever. So it says over here, if you're on page 80, you need to review pages 1 through 79. Okay? So try to do at least a juz, and it says no less than a fourth of a juz. If I knew less, if I know only 2-3 juz of the Quran, then someone tell me when it's 320, okay, inshallah? Because I have to just, Yeah.
regarding
Yes.
go over previous 10 days.
Yes.
When my sheikh introduced to me a really good way is that,
Yeah.
for example, let's say I know
Guys, listen up, please.
Let's say I just started memorizing the Quran today.
Yeah.
First page is Surah Al-Baqarah. The first day I did Tasmiyah first page. Second day I did Tasmiyah the second page and the first page. I keep on doing the Tasmiyah the day before until I reach day 10. I
Okay.
move 1 page forward.
Yes.
You understand me?
Yeah.
So each page I at least recite it 10 times with him.
Yeah.
That makes the hafid really strong.
Yeah.
And I noticed that, for example, like there are times when I had finals and I did 5 pages.
Yeah.
Those pages, like my hafid is weaker than like when I did 10 pages.
Yeah.
So that's really good because I think if you do it the end of every week or 10 days, you're gonna forget a large.
No. It's not every 10 days. Every day you're doing the last 10 days.
Oh, yeah, that's what I'm saying.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. So one of my teachers, one of the things he would do is after we would finish the surah, okay, he would tell me to recite the entire, like when I was memorizing Juz Amma, I was like 10 maybe, but I would memorize like Surah Naba, and then he would say, okay, now you recite the entire surah. Surah Mursalat, okay, recite the rest of Juz Amma. Every single, and in one setting. So you have to review the whole thing, and I had to read the entire thing, not just like one surah, one page here and there, and something like that. Abdullah.
What's the difference between B and C?
Okay, so B is just the last 10 days you're reviewing. C is, so B is short term, C is long term. From before. Okay, so it's a lot more. And you keep going through whatever you've memorized. And you have to make the system on your own. Hold on just a minute, inshallah. I have a few more slides and then we're going to share your thoughts. And I'm sure, mashallah, you guys have lots of good ideas. So another thing, So it says part A is the easiest. The first part, memorizing something new, is actually easy. Why? Because Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, وَلَقَدْ يَسَّرْنَا الْقُرْآنَ لِلذِّكْرِ فَهَلْ مِن مُدَّكِرٍ. Right? So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala made that easy to memorize it. However, the reviewing part is very difficult. That's the part you have to spend a lot more time on. Yes. And you should also have someone to check your Quran. Okay, as I mentioned this before, we should have someone listening to us, because a lot of the mistakes, or sometimes we make mistakes, actually that's the last slide. So when we are making mistakes, a lot of times we will not catch our own mistakes. So we need to have someone listening. And if you have a teacher who you're afraid of, okay, I was afraid of my teacher, he would beat us. Okay, so if you're afraid of that person, you will memorize better. Okay, so don't, like, if it's someone that you're not very, like, I recite to my wife. I'm not scared of my wife. Hey, or maybe I am a little bit.
Brother,
Okay,
everyone is.
maybe a little
Every
bit I
male
am.
is
But
scared of their
anyways,
wives.
but the thing is, if you're not scared that they're gonna do something, or you're gonna lose something, then you're not going to be able to focus and stay on it. So you have to respect your teacher and other things like this. Yes, Mahmoud.
Yeah, I kind of saying about the last point.
Yeah.
Yeah, that happens, I think, to like almost like every single hafiz, because like what happens when I was memorizing the Quran, sometimes I kind of like wouldn't catch my mistakes, and then when my dad I kind of did tasbih to my dad.
Yeah.
Then after that, like he kept telling me all of these mistakes, and I'm just like, oh, okay, like I didn't know that from before.
Yeah.
So that's why, like, even like I give advice to people who didn't memorize the Quran. Make sure you actually like reading every single word correctly and the tashkil correctly. So then, inshallah, someday when you memorize the Quran, you don't get caught up with all these mistakes. And not only that, the hard part about it is that when you go back to review, you actually have to remember the right way to say it.
Yes. Okay, now general tips from the Hufaz and anyone else even.
Usama Zaidi
that's
would
fine.
like to contribute.
Yes, go ahead first. Ramil.
So this is for people that already memorized. When I would do Muraja, I would when I was reciting to my shaykh from like the start from Surah Baqarah, he would test me on the last 3 juz. Like he would give me not the whole thing, but just ask me like questions.
Yeah.
Yeah, like 5 questions from each juz.
Okay. Jazakallah khair. Good. What else?
Well, I'm going to read first on the aspect that you should not commit sins. Because I've tried it while memorizing the Quran or even while doing Muraja. Just like sins with my parents and myself, and you feel, okay, you want to come sit down to Muraja, you read 2 ayahs, you're going to feel tired, you're going to feel sleepy. Just Allah is going to distract your heart from the Quran.
Yeah. Subhanallah. Jazakallah khair. Yes, Zafar.
If you're memorizing, say half a page a day, you have to stay constant on it, because if you miss it one time, then the next day you'll get more lazy. The next day you'll get more lazy.
And it'll get even more difficult when you do get back to it.
So stay constant on it. So if you miss one day, it's like you're missing a whole week. You miss a whole week, it's like you're missing a whole month.
Jazakallah khair. Okay, very good. Yes.
And like when you're done with like every juz or something, have a certain time, like every half juz or something, you say it all in one sitting. You like make a time every 5 pages, every 10 juz, every 1 juz, every half juz.
Okay, good. Yes.
Stick with one Quran and stick with one teacher as well.
Okay, stick with one Quran and one teacher. So the teacher part I learned also the hard way. Okay, so the first teacher I had, mashallah, he was good, and everything, but his tajweed wasn't that great. Okay, and when I went to another teacher who had a better tajweed and so on, then he would correct those things. And the parts that I had memorized with the first teacher, it was very, very difficult, because the second teacher, he would stop me all the time, right? So he was like, oh, hey, this is messed up, or this word is actually, this is not ta, it's va, or it's, or ta instead, and so on. So the difference in letters and so on. So that gets you really confused, and it gets you really frustrated when you're reciting. So trying to stick to one teacher and memorizing with tajweed always helps. And also even the differences of tajweed. So last week, remember, we were talking about the iqlab, okay? And so one of my Egyptian teachers, he said, you say, so it's like idgham. No, it's not idgham, it's ikhfa, okay? And the other one said, no, it's idgham. You say, or it's like iqlab, basically. It's with the meme. So you make sure that you pronounce it and hold the ghunna. Other one said, no, you don't say the meme, okay? That you shouldn't actually hear the meme at all. So it's this difference, you get confused, Okay? And so trying to stick to one teacher, at least get through the Quran. Once you're done, then find another teacher to improve on tajweed. Okay? But at least you're done with the Quran now. There's always room for improvement. You're not going to become Sheikh Husari the first time. It's going to become years, maybe 20, 30 years of practice. And then you might, if Allah gifts you, you might be able to recite the Quran like Sheikh Husari. Yes?
When you stay with one teacher, he knows your limit.
Yeah.
So he won't give you anything extra.
Yeah.
He won't give you too low.
And motivating, right? He knows what motivates you, what to pressure you and not to pressure you. Yeah. Jazakumullah khairan. Yes.
Yeah, I mean, for example, when I was small, I had a sheikh. He knew my level, so he would tajweed didn't really like focus on it that hard.
Yeah.
Then he went to he's not a sheikh, but he's like my older friend. He's very good at tajweed.
Yeah.
Almost got each other.
Yes.
He
Brothers.
taught me
Every
Surah
second.
Al-Nas 5 times, Surah Al-Falaq, Fatiha 10 times.
Yeah.
Yeah, it gets hard.
So where I was teaching in California, mashallah, we were blessed to have several teachers who were from Al-Azhar. Okay, so Sheikh Rifat, you can look him up. He's on YouTube and different places too. Beautiful voice. He sounds. I think he's better than Sheikh Muhammad Jibril, if you know who he is, from Egypt. But anyway, so he was a great reciter, Sheikh Rifat from Sacramento. And brothers, listen up. So one time I remember I sat with him and I started reciting, and on the Basmala, on Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim, he stopped me 10 times. Okay? And may Allah bless him, of course he was trying to fix it, but I think he felt how frustrated I was getting, so then he kind of laid off a little bit. But so you pick the right teacher who knows where you're at, where the level you are. Because just imagine, the person who is, if you're the first day, you're at the masjid, you're going to recite Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim, and the teacher is sitting there and he's correcting every little thing, okay? And he stops you 10 times, you're not going to come back the second day, okay?
Yeah.
So you have to make sure that you know where the level, and that's why a good teacher, will be able to help you in that. Ramil and then Abdullah. Yes?
Yeah, when I was starting my ijazah, it was
Yes.
the same sheikh, but ijazah has to be with the tajweed and stuff.
Yes.
So I made 20 mistakes in Surah Fatiha.
Yeah. And it gets frustrating.
Yeah,
But, mashallah, that will always help you. Yes?
There's a question I've always had, even among the Arabs and all the sheikhs. The Egyptian Qurra are the best in tajweed.
Yeah.
And it's weird, I'm surprised why. Is there a reason?
I think it's just, in general, their schooling. You know, they have, any... No, I don't think it's just the gift from Allah, because there's a lot of hard work and sacrifice they put into it. Yes, Mr. Magic.